Well, hello everyone. My name is Dr. V, and I want to present you with a series of different investments on the calculation of the annual percentage rates of ETFs. What you might be aware of or may not be aware of is ETF stands for Exchange Traded Funds. If you're not certain about how to invest in the stock market, then I'm going to show you an example of what you can invest in. And there's going to be different series. For every episode will be a different ETF. Now, these are just for educational purposes. This is not for personal financial advice. I am not a licensed financial advisor. I'm a licensed mathematics teacher. I've been teaching for many years, actually since 1992, and I taught financial literacy for 6 years. So this is just for educational purposes. I do own the following ETF, which is the Vanguard Total Index. I've always recommended students who want to get involved and invest in the stock market, they may want to buy an index fund. Well, you can't go wrong with the Vanguard Index Fund. This total index, if you would invest at $10,000 10 years ago, that would be worth today, according to this graph, $30,635. Now, once again, this is not educational advice. This is not financial advice. This is educational advice. For financial advice, you must seek a licensed fiduciary who is a licensed financial advisor. Okay? This is just for strictly educational purposes, but I do own many shares in the Vanguard Total Index. Now, the Vanguard Total Index is comprised of 11 different sectors or exposures. I won't go through all of them, but I'll just highlight 3 of them. We'll go right in the center here, which is technology. 29.53% of Vanguard Total Index is made up of technology, 12.55% is made up of healthcare, and 12.8% is made up of financial services. There are about 3,700 different stocks invested or comprised of the Vanguard Total Index. The top 10 are listed here. The top 3 I'll highlight is Microsoft, Apple, and NVIDIA. Microsoft, Apple, and NVIDIA to date could be worth a lot of money. Offhand, Apple I believe is worth about $160 to date. Microsoft I believe is worth more than that, and NVIDIA is worth much, much more than that if you just want to buy 1 share of each. But if you want to buy 1 share of the total stock market, you can look up what that is. Today it's about approximately $250 per share. If you want to buy 1 share of each of these, you'll be spending probably about $1,000. So you can save money buying VTI, but again, that's comprised of 3,700 different stocks, but then you'll be diversified in the stock market. The Vanguard Total Interest is compounded quarterly, but to learn about this, you must understand the formula of how to compound interest. So we use a formula. Let me go over this formula in broad detail. We take the present value, in this case it's $30,635. That's equal to your initial investment, and we denote that by the letter P, multiplied by 1 plus R over N. R is the actual annual percentage rate, and N is number of times compounded per year. Compounds, as far as ETFs goes, usually is quarterly. Not always, but for the Vanguard Total Index, it's quarterly, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So N stands for number of times compounded, and T stands for statements and reasons. This looks familiar to you if you passed geometry or you took geometry. These are proofs. Most students may not like proofs. I taught geometry for many years, and it's a good way to learn geometry, but we're not going to do geometry. We're going to calculate the annual percentage rate of Vanguard Total Index in proofs. The first statement is given. It's a compound interest formula, and here's the compound interest formula as I previously mentioned. Now, let's plug in what we might know, and this is called substitution. So what do we know about the present value? Well, I mentioned the present value, according to the graph, is $30,635. This is based upon a $10,000 initial investment back in April 2014. 1 plus R over 4, this fund is compounded 4 times a year. at the end of March, June, September, and December. And we raise that to the number of times compounded times the number of years. Well, 10 years times 4 times a year is 40. So we get 40 as our exponents. Now, let's make this a little simpler. How can we clean this up? Well, if we divide 10,000 from 30,635, we call this division property of equality. And then we get a decimal of 3.0635 equal to 1 plus r to the fourth raised to a power of 40. Now, we have to figure out how can we figure out the annual percentage rate with all this gobbledygook in here. Well, we need to clean this up a little more, and we do this using a function called the natural logarithm, or natural log. The abbreviation of natural log is ln. So we take the natural log of 3.0635 set equal to the natural log of 1 plus r over 4 and raised to a power of 40. But we still need to clean this up a little bit more. But there's something nice about the natural log. We can take the exponent of 40 and bring it down right here. And that's called the property of natural log. And now we have a multiplication, 40 times the natural log of 1 plus r over 4. And then to get this cleaned up a little bit on the right side, we want to divide the left side of the natural log of 3.0635 by 40, and we want to divide the right side by 40, and therefore the 40s on the right disappear, and you're left with this fraction equal to the natural log of 1 plus r over 4. Now, we can clean this up a little more by doing what's called the inverse of the natural log, and that's with the letter E. E stands for the natural exponent. So if we take e to a function with a natural log, something nice could happen. So we take a look on the right here. If we take e to the natural log of 1 plus r to the 4, this e and natural log, well, since they're inverses of each other, they disappear. And then on a calculator, you want to simplify and evaluate. So if you take e to the natural log of 3.0635 divided by 40, you use on a calculator, you should end up with 1.02838. Now, not all calculators work the same. If you do this on an iPhone or an Android, it might be more difficult to figure out e to the natural log of 3.0635 divided by 40. You may have to take this fraction and then take the e to that fraction. Or if you have a TI-30, you just type in e, raise it to this fraction, do natural log of 3.0635 divided by 40, and you'll get a decimal of 1.02838, and you set it equal to 1 plus r over 4. But you clean a lot of this stuff up by doing this. And now, if we still want to solve for the annual percentage rate, we have to get rid of the 1. Well, that's actually much simpler. You have to use subtraction property of equality, and you subtract 1 on both sides, and you get a decimal of 0.2838, set equal to r over 4. And then since you're taking r and divide by 4, how do you get rid of division? You have to do the opposite by multiplying, or the inverse. So the multiplication property of equality, if you take 4 times 0.02838, you get a decimal of 0.11352. Now, this is your interest rate as a decimal, but if you change it over by multiplying by 100, you now get an annual percentage rate. So, since 2014, the annual percentage rate of Vanguard Total Index is 11.35%. Now, past performance does not indicate future results. You could lose your principal. This is for educational purposes. Thank you very much for joining Dr. B. Take care, and I'll see you again.